During the 1862 war between the United States government and the Dakotas is what there is referred to as the mass execution. Some of us wonder what brought the mass execution of 1862. It all happened on December 26, 1862. There was a failure again between the Minnesota and them not honoring their treaties with the Indian nation. The Indians were not given the money or the food to set them free, forcing them to sign a treaty to turn over 1 million acres of the land and forcing them to live on reservations. Indian agents kept the treaty that money and food would go to all of the Indians. The food was sold to the white settlers, and then when they brought it to the Indians, it was rotten, not even fit for a dog to eat. They had to go searching the land for food to feed their families. One of the groups took eggs from a white settler's land, and the rest of it was history. Since there were so many encounters with the Indians and the government, they were often called to make new treaties so that they would get the food, money, and the home that they needed, which most of the time never happened. If they did get the food, it was always rotten. And if they did get the money or food, it was not enough for them and their animals. Lincoln and Governor Alexander Ramsey set out to exterminate the Indians from their homeland. The president went to order the immediate execution of all 303 males found guilty of stealing food to feed their families and killing some African Americans. He was concerned with how this would play with the Europeans, whom he was afraid they were going to enter a war on the side of the South. He offered a compromise to the politicians of Minnesota. They would pare the list to be hung down to 39 in return. Lincoln promised to kill or remove every Indian from the state and provide Minnesota with $2 million in federal funds. They already owed the Sioux $1.4 million for their land. On December 1862, Lincoln, the great magnificator, ordered the largest mass execution in American history. The guilt of those who were executed was entirely in doubt. Regardless of how Lincoln seeks to play this, it was no more than a mass murder to obtain the land of the Santee Sioux and appease his political cronies in Minnesota. Ordered that the Indians and half-breeds sentenced and be hung by the military commission composed of Colonel Crooks, L.T. Colonel Marshall, Captain Grant, Captain Bailey, and Lieutenant Allen on December 6th. Lincoln notified Henry H. Sibley that he should cause to be executed 39 of 303 convicted Santees. They sang the Sioux Death Song until a soldier pulled white caps over their head and placed the nooses around their neck. At the signal of an officer, they would cut the ropes, and 38 Santee Sioux hung lifeless in the air. Alexander Ramsey had declared by September 9, 1862, the Sioux Indians needed to be driven forever beyond the border of Minnesota or exterminated. The treatment of Dakota people, including the mass hanging of Mankato and the forced removal of the Dakota Indian people from Minnesota, were the phrases of Ramsey's plan. In late April 1863, the remaining condemned men, along the survivors of Fort Snelling concentration camps, were forcibly removed from their beloved homeland. In May 1863, they were placed in boats, which transported the men from Mankato to Davenport, Iowa, where they were imprisoned for an additional 3 years. The Indians from Fort Snelling were shipped down the Mississippi River to St. Louis, and then up the Missouri River to Crow Creek Reservation in South Dakota. The youngest Indian killed was 12 years old because she murdered a 6-year-old after an argument. Not only the Dakotas were affected by this, other Indian nations were also inflicted by this mass murder. They were hurt because some family and friends were killed. There were a couple of little arguments and a little back and forth killing, like the Indians killed a few Native Americans and they killed a few Indians, and back and forth. There were also a lot of encounters with the U.S. government. Lincoln and Governor Alexander Ramsey. Indians westward to a narrow reservation on harsh prairie along the river. They wanted them to cut their hair, take up farming, and change their religion. The war left a big impact on the region's settlers. Children were left with no fathers of some and nowhere to go to help their needs. Widows suffered trying to take care of their kids and their farm work that had to be done in order to have food. The town of New Ulm was left in ashes. The significance, the Treaty of the Reservation, the Dakota culture shrank. There were deaths of hundreds. The Dakota's homeland was opened to new settlers, and the Homestead Act meant the land would be filled quickly. The aftermath of the war has an impact on us still today. It also changed society and made several state parks like Fort Snelling and more. That the Dakota War ever happened is that they stole a few eggs from a couple farmers. They needed food, so they went out to find it, and nothing was found but a chicken farm. So they thought it wouldn't hurt to take a few eggs. And they did, and that's how the whole Dakota War started. The Dakota was all because of some broken treaties from the government. The Dakota War ended about September 9th, 1862. The government moved the Indians to a reservation and cut their hair, changed their religions, and took up farming.